text. The training center also.
You have to try out the extraordinary things.
Watch their inspiring journeys on Made in Kenya every Monday at 9 p.m. I will milk Sabina dry, and then I'll get rid of her. Citizen TV. This is the Monday Report with Trevor Ombija.
That's absolutely right. Good evening. Thank you so much for tuning in and tuning into the Monday Report. Look, last week we spoke to the weatherman and there was a warning that the impending floods. Was that warning heeded too? Was the language too technical? That's the conversation we're having again today. We're doing a recap, calling it Navigating the Weather. Ezekiel Muigai Njoroge, the Acting Deputy Director of Forecasting Services at the Kenya Meteorological Department, will be joining us online from Machakos to speak to us about what the weather forecast looks like in the next 1 week and into the entire month. But is it Mother Nature's wrath or poor urban planning, or both? That's a conversation we'll be having with Patrick Adolwa. He's a town planner and an urban specialist. He was involved in this designing the city structure here in Nairobi. Did they lose? Did they not? What is to blame? How can it be fixed? On that conversation coming up in just a bit. But I'm not alone here. Emmanuel Dung is standing by with the latest in the sporting world. It's good to see you, man. How are you?
Yes, I'm very good. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you again. And good evening to everyone at home as well. We have some sad news.
Fun experiment. Road to Singapore. That 6 billion shillings raised from KPC to kickstart the National Infrastructure Fund as President Ruto signs bill into law. Kalonzo flexes muscles. Azimio kicks out Joho, Junet, Wandai and Oparanya from the coalition as former Raila outfit evolves. Speeding could land you in jail. New era's NTSA rolls out instant fines nationwide for traffic offences.
Children are not able to move freely in the field and play in the field, and they're not even able to eat from the field because the place is full of water.
Search operations continue for missing victims as flood-hit communities grapple with widespread destruction as schools remain closed, disrupting learning. Thanks for tuning in. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Belinda Phillips. The expansion of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport will be the first project funded by the National Infrastructure Fund as President William Ruto committed 15 billion to 20 billion shillings towards the multi-billion shillings project. He signed the National Infrastructure Bill into law today. The president said that this was not a trial and error plan, reiterating that the new law will give legal backing to the 5 trillion ambitious journey to make Kenya a first world country. Emmanuel To has
3 days after the National Assembly passed the National Infrastructure Bill 2026, which anchors the roadmap to the first world status for Kenya, President William Ruto put pen to paper, assenting to the bill, which now establishes the National Fund to power major infrastructural projects in the country.
The National Infrastructure Fund gives us the opportunity to build the future rather than wait for it. The National Infrastructure Fund is not an experiment.
The president announcing that the proceeds from the privatization of Kenya Pipeline Corporation will make the first installment of the 5 trillion shilling ambitious fund.
And tomorrow in the morning at 8, I will be at the NSC to ring the bell to complete the privatization of the Kenya Pipeline IPO and raise 106 billion Kenya shillings that will be the seed money for the National Infrastructure Fund.
The head of state also revealing that the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport expansion will be the inaugural project funded under the new plan.
We will put in our 15 or 20 billion pension funds, insurance companies, other collectives. You have the opportunity to invest. We are not talking about next year. We are not talking about in August. The opportunity to work with us in the National Infrastructure Fund is as soon as next month.
The new law now paves the way for the establishment of a 2-tier government structure to oversee the fund. The 2 entities, a governing council and a board of directors of the fund, is expected to be recruited soon.
These commercially viable agencies and enterprises will not run by people with political connection. They will not be run by politicians who have not succeeded in their quest.
Signing of the National Infrastructure Act into law is the wider delivery of Kenya Kwanza Manifesto as approved by Kenyans in the last election. And this was a promise which was in black and white.
Collected through the fund is expected to finance the construction of national highways, railway networks, airports, seaports, electricity generation, transmission and distribution infrastructure, among others. Emmanuel Toh, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Now, the signing of the infrastructure bill into law will go a long way in curing the fiscal challenges faced by the country in its quest to meet infrastructure and decreasing the public debt even further. Public debt, which currently stands at 67% of GDP, consumes more than half of the total revenue collected in debt service. Jimmy Bogo has more details.
As the infrastructure demand in the country continues to grow, so does the need for new and...
Want to develop your career quickly? Come to Alibaba.com. Search for matches. Identify the right one. Pay with confidence. Fulfill with transparency. Woo!
Annually to meet its infrastructure requirements. However, owing to risk posed by sovereign debt, the country has been forced to pivot and look for more domestic solutions, such as the National Infrastructure Fund.
A decade ago, Africa, Kenya included, believed it had found a once-in-a-generation opportunity to accelerate infrastructure development. Globally, rates were historically low following the global financial crisis. The China's Belt and Road Initiative opened new sources of infrastructure finance. But we did not fully anticipate the risks of relying so heavily on sovereign debt. And certainly, none of us could have foreseen the shocks that would soon follow.
It is this reliance on external borrowing that the government is keen to undo with President Ruto highlighting the discrepancies in the global pricing model for African countries and the rest of the world, an issue that he says has forced Africans Kenya to continue to bear the brunt of high costs of credit at the expense of their own development.
Just look at the numbers. You know, our default rate is 5.5%. In Latin America, it is 14.5%. Yet, when we go to the market, we are told we are much more risky investment destination than Latin America. Where is the sense? Where is the fairness? And that is precisely what this National Infrastructure Fund is going to solve.
Beside the proceeds from the privatization of public entities, which is expected to form bulk of the National Infrastructure Fund, the government intends to capitalize on the private sector by tapping into the 2.8 trillion shillings in pension funds and other private sector investments. These, the government argues, will offer investors good return, create jobs, while addressing the high cost of debt service, noting that this is patient capital that can be used for national development.
It's very important, Your Excellency, that the private sector is involved. We want to participate. We request your government to continue inviting us to the table. We've seen that, coming through. We as a banking sector are willing to fund commercially viable projects. Definitely. Sure.
So this allows that in the growth of our country, and it is this growth that will then widen the private sector and again enable us to invest some more.
Jimmy Bogo, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
And away from that, State House spent 92% of its annual budgetary allocation in the first 6 months of the year of the financial year, with 2 billion shillings on unspecified expenses. State House was also among the top government departments with the highest expenditure under other expenses. That category stands at 3.94 billion. This despite a litany of projects some commenced 10 years ago, laying incomplete. Still at 5%.
According to the Controller of Budget, State House continues to receive one of the highest single allocations and recording the highest absorption rates for the last 6 months of the 2025 financial coordination of State House functions spent 7.4 billion shillings out of an 8.1 billion shillings of its allocation, recording a 92% absorption rate. These, according to the Controller of Budget, comprise an expenditure of 6.9 billion shillings on the recurrent books and 474 million shillings on development. Despite the heavy absorption analysis, the State House project implementation status revealed a different story altogether, with some projects lying incomplete for more than 10 years. The report shows that refurbishment of the Eldoret State Lodge is barely 5% complete, yet the project began 10 years ago and 926 million shillings allocated for the project. Nyakango in her report further revealed that the refurbishment of the Kisii State Lodge that kicked off in the year 2019 is only 2% complete, despite an allocation of 795 million shillings. Refurbishment of the fence and the main house at the Mombasa State House has also been questioned by the Controller of Budget. The construction work is only at 30%, yet it had been allocated 1.3 billion shillings. The refurbishment of the Kakamega State Lodge that began 10 years ago is just 20% complete. 265 million shillings had been allocated for the project. A similar concern has been raised in the Sagana State Lodge, whose repair was allocated 388 million shillings and only 27% of the works has been done. In Kisumu, the Controller of Budget says upgrade work that began in July 2015 is only 40 complete, despite 45 million. Stephen Letos, TV.
Tonight, motorists speeding on major Kenyan roads will face penalties after the National Transport and Safety Authority rolled out the instant fine management system. The system uses cameras to capture vehicle details and sends offense notices to the car owner, who must pay within 7 days. Those who defy the law may face fines of up to 10,000 shillings or even jail time or even the license getting suspended. Gaderoge has more.
Along the southern bypass in Nairobi, motorists speed in both directions, unaware that this is one of the roads now monitored by NTSA cameras under the newly rolled out instant fine management system, officially activated on Monday. NTSA announced the digital in a public notice as part of a broader plan to enhance road safety. The system is programmed in such a way that once a motorist violates a traffic rule, it sends a notification of the offense and the fine one is supposed to pay. For example, a driver who exceeds the speed limit by 5 km per hour will be fined 500 shillings. Those driving between 6 and 10 kilometers per hour above the limit will pay 3,000 shillings, while drivers exceeding the limit by 11 to 15 kilometers per hour face a fine of 6,000 shillings. Exceeding between 16 and 20,000 shillings. However, drivers exceeding the speed limit by more than 21 kilometers per hour will not pay a standard fine. Instead, they will face court charges and their license will be suspended for a specified period. Fines must be settled within 7 days. To do so will incur interest, and the driver on call will be barred from accessing NTSA service platforms until the fine is cleared. The system has been installed in major roads around the city. They include Southern Bypass, Northern Bypass, Thika Superhighway, Expressway. The implementation follows President William Ruto's directive to the Ministry of Transport to install the cameras and curb road carnage after more than 5,000 deaths were reported in 2025. While receiving a report from the National Council on the Administration of Justice, chaired by Chief Justice Koome, the President emphasized the need for tough measures against reckless drivers putting Kenyans' lives at risk. Gatete Njoroge, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Now, 3 people have died and 5 others remain hospitalized following a multiple vehicle accident along the Kisumu-Busia road on Sunday. Conflicting accounts have emerged over what happened. The Ministry of Health stated that the Health Cabinet Secretary Adan Duale's motorcade had stopped at the scene to coordinate emergency medical assistance for the victims. However, witnesses say that a car in the convoy was driving on the wrong side, colliding with a tuk-tuk and a passenger van. Loroti has more.
At the accident and emergency ward in Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Hospital, George Otieno is among the 5 patients receiving treatment. Otieno was in a passenger van involved in Sunday evening's accident along the Kisumu-Busia road after a vehicle in a convoy steered onto the wrong side of the road, colliding with a tuk-tuk and a van.
Liligongana Prado nyeusi ambayo ilikuwa imetoka opposite direction kwa speed ya juu na ikagonga bumps, ikairusha na kugonga gari letu.
Hasa mwenye alitugonga alikuja side yetu na fununu wetu tunasikia gari ilikuwa ya CS. So alitugonga, yeye alienda.
On Sunday, the Ministry of Health stated that CSS Duale's motorcade had stopped at the scene to coordinate emergency medical assistance for the victims.
Serikali waangalie vile wanaendesha magari yao kwa barabara. Kwa maana ukiangalia hapo vizuri pale chini ya accident, hiyo gari iligonga tuk-tuk on the left hand side, ambayo inaonyesha walichukua barabara yote.
2 people died on the spot, while another succumbed upon arrival at the hospital. The affected families are now appealing for justice for their loved ones.
Sasa sina namna, sina uwezo. Mimi nilikuwa naambia tu kama naweza pata usaidizi kwa serikali, kwa ajili magari ya serikali nimeleta hiyo shida. Kama naweza pata usaidizi kwa serikali, nipate jinsi ya kuzika mtoto wangu na nipate haki yangu pia.
12 people were treated and discharged, while 5 others are still receiving treatment. Dora Otieno, Citizen TV.
From that, learning was disrupted in several schools across the country on Monday morning following Friday evening floods that wreaked havoc in many regions. At Kware Primary School in Nairobi, pupils and teachers were forced to begin the week clearing mud and debris after classrooms and raw sewage spilled into the school compound. And as Emily Chebet now reports, the death toll from the floods has now risen to 44, even as recovery and evacuation operations continue.
These learners from Kware Primary School in Mukuru here in Nairobi are cleaning up a mess they had nothing to do with. The pupils now exposed to potential health risks were forced to skip their morning lessons after Friday's flooding left a section of their school inhabitable. Classrooms were submerged and raw sewage spilled into the compound, leaving teachers, parents and learners scrambling to restore some order before learning could resume. The school's head teacher declined to speak on camera about why young pupils were involved in cleaning the sewage-filled classrooms and compound, a task parents say should be handled by adults, even as they called on the government to sort the perennial flooding problem as a result of blocked drainage system in the area. At Our Lady of Mercy Primary School in South B, learning has also been affected after the institution was left without electricity since Friday when the heavy rains brought down a power pole within the area. According to the school teacher, the situation over the weekend was dire, with sections of the school compound affected, blaming some buildings around the school that have been built along the waterway.
Children are not able to move freely in the field and play in the field, and they're not even able to eat the field because the place is full of water. There is a class because of the leaking roof. The ceiling fell, and luckily because it was on a weekend, there were no learners, so we managed to remove the ceiling.
We normally have our revision classes in the evening and even early in the morning, but the one in the evening we are so much stranded and we are so much worried that we may have the floods, we may have the heavy rain like what happened on Friday. So it is forcing us to release the learners earlier.
The school administration is calling on the county government to enforce proper urban planning, particularly around learning institutions, noting that poorly planned buildings and blocked waterways continue to worsen flooding whenever heavy rains occur. In Makueni County, family members, friends,
any government, any leadership that can help us could be of.
We have managed to retrieve one body, which we have handed over to the police. One body is missing along the river. We have conducted search and recovery along the river, but we have not managed to recover his body.
At least 10 people have been swept away by flood waters across Makueni over the past 2 weeks, as persistent rain continued to cause rivers to overflow and disrupt normal activities. Emily Chebet, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Let's stay with the floods, and tonight the human toll of last week's devastating floods continues to unfold. For the fourth day, grieving families have been streaming into Nairobi's funeral home, each carrying the weight of loss and a reminder of lives cut tragically short. Meanwhile, Nairobi County has waived all health facility bills related to the floods, a measure that comes a little too late for Friday's flood victims. As Francis Ordena reports, postmortems for all identified bodies are scheduled for Tuesday, March 10th.
At the Nairobi Funeral Home, there is heavy sorrow. One after another, hoping to find closure, but often living with heartbreak. Among them is the family of 35-year-old Eric Jerome Mutua. Early Friday, before the horror downpour, Eric had been celebrating his junior colleague, Philip Omondi, who had been named Employee of the Year at a conference at Langata's Tamarin Hotel. But the moment of triumph would never be fully shared. As they drove past Timol Junction, their car was overwhelmed by floodwaters, cutting both their lives short.
From the 9:12, because we called after 15 minutes. So we suspect that small period, that is where they were overwhelmed. They were retrieved in the car, and seemingly they were just, seated in their chairs. Somebody, the investigation officer tells us that he found them in a posture as if they were sleeping.
A similar tragedy unfolded in Kibera, where Nicholas Kialo, a boda rider, had set out for work as usual, ferrying a passenger through the rain-soaked streets. But the swelling floodwaters soon turned unforgiving, sweeping him away and claiming his life in the very line of duty that sustained his family.
Sisi tulipokuja pale Makina kwa maji, tukapata Nicholas Kialo amelala kwa maji pale, ambapo paka saizi hatujui huyo driver huyo passenger ambaye alibebwa, hatujampata paka leo.
The Grogan community was hit hard. Paul Sarakija, an egg vendor well known in the bustling market, did not survive in the deluge.
Kwa hivyo aliposombwa na maji tu hivi, kuna watu walimuona ambao wanamfahamu, wakamwambia ndugu yenu amechukuliwa na maji.
And in Isli, the family of Suleiman Abdullahi Eno has laid him to rest according to Islamic tradition after his body was recovered days following the floods. But for some, closure remains elusive. In Lakisama, the family of Paul Juma continues to wait, holding on to hope as they search for their missing loved one.
So statement yenye tunasikia alisema ya mwisho, alisema hawezi lala kama hajaona mtoto wake, ameacha mtoto wa 1 month. Alisema hawezi lala kama hajaona mtoto wake, lazima aende kwake. So na kwa mlevi.
The county government has announced that all mortuary fees for flood victims have been waived, but it also issued a stern warning to residents who have built along riparian land, a warning that comes too late for the Kenyans who lost their lives and their families left behind.
Tutafanya postmortems zote kesho. Sisi kama serikali ya county kupitia mheshimiwa gavana tumesema kuwa wale watu wote wenye wako katika facility zetu za county tutawaive, wale wako katika hospitali zetu na wale katika mochari yetu kama hii tutawefu yote ya hayo maneno.
Now it's the fourth day since swept away Kenyans within CBD and its environs, with the families coming to city mortuary identify bodies of their loved ones. But reports coming from the families state that some of them might have been murdered and the word drowning placed in the books at the city mortuary. The Francis, Citizen TV, City Mortuary, Nairobi.
And in what appears 7 people when left at the the newly created joint state Nairobi implemented 100 billion shillings allocation to overhaul and reconstruct the drainage system within the capital city. During its first sitting at City Hall, enlisted a number of multi-billion shillings aimed at changing the face of the city under the Nairobi Rising agenda. Sedolale has more details.
With the rescue, recovery and emergency responses underway following deadly floodings in the capital city.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
The State Nairobi County Implementation Committee, set up under the cooperation agreement between Nairobi City County and the national government, held its inaugural meeting. Top of the agenda was flood mitigation.
Of course, the river regeneration coming at a time when we've had quite a disaster with flooding.
The Johnson Sakaja-led implementation committee approving allocation of 25 billion shillings for the overhaul and reconstruction of the Nairobi drainage system that will involve construction of expansive troughs and spillways, water collection points, sewage and bridge construction.
Of course, what we costed last year was too much for the county. 25 billion, when you're running a 40 billion budget, salaries and all that, the county cannot do it on its own. Yeah. And that's why we need more resources, and I'm glad that now we are moving towards that.
According to the implementation plan, 2.1 billion shillings will go towards the enhancement of the Ngedu-Gigiri water transmission pipeline, whose deadline is within 12 months. The 3 billion shillings worth Nairobi City Water and Sewerage Last Mile Connectivity Works, whose timeline is 18 months, the 27 kilometers twin trunk Siwa Nairobi River Corridor worth 9 billion shillings, whose work is ongoing, and the 3 billion shillings Gigiri Shauri Moyo water evacuation corridor, whose deadline is within 12 months.
Every level of government shall do its work. We shall use this as a framework to get additional resources through the appropriation in the national budget as well as the county budget.
The state and Nairobi County Government implementation met for the first time at City Hall, Nairobi, is seeking towards a comprehensive overhaul of the capital city's historic infrastructure agenda in order to future calamities such as the recent floods that cause deaths and destruction. Seth Olale, Citizen TV in Nairobi County.
Right, our deepest goes out to all those who lost their loved one during the floods. That's a conversation we're going to have later on and find out, is it Mother Nature's wrath or poor urban planning? That conversation coming up in just a short while. Keep your views coming at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Citizen Monday Report. See you in just a bit. Coming up, police recover tens of stolen phones following the stabbing to death of a Kenya Power employee in Nakuru.
Who manages your wealth, legacy, and connects you with investment opportunities in Kenya and globally?
At Standard Chartered, family businesses, business owners, and corporate executives have entrusted us with over $2.3 billion. As the only international bank in Kenya, we bring you global expertise and a wide range of investment solutions right here at home.
Your wealth is guided by certified relationship managers who are supported by insurance and investment specialists.
Because growing your wealth is not about chasing hype.
It's about clarity, transparency, and long-term value.
Now is your time for wealth. Join Priority Banking today.
Vaseline is the only petroleum jelly with a unique triple purification seal, meaning it is safe to use on all skin types, including sensitive skin, and has been clinically tested and dermatologically certified to be free of allergens or irritants and does not block pores. Use Vaseline because it is the first step to maintaining natural, healthy skin.
This is Stanbic Executive Banking, built for your ambition. You shop, you unlock discounts. You pay by card, you get rewarded. You book a holiday, you get a discount. Your car, your peace of mind. Ambition never stops with Stanbic Executive Banking, and neither should you.
Kumagaraine yake Remakia Mount Kenya. Raha Premium Kavagara na Raha Premium Gano ndio kibuko yao. Emelok nenana neleleke yala talale. Anela takage kana kerenja sietu. Na ukatikana kila vanti ya Kenya. Igun agenge en member Kavagara Club.
technology. Dial star 977 hash or download my Power app to access Kenya Power services fast and easy. Kenya Power, nuru ya Kenya.
Welcome back to the Monday Report. Now, 2 people have been killed in Nakuru this past week. The latest victim being a Kenya Power employee, Ambrose Omondi, who was stabbed to death on Sunday while on his way to work. The incidents have sparked growing concern among residents who warn of worsening insecurity in the area. Police have arrested 8 suspects linked to criminal activities there. Citizen TV's Ben Kirui has more.
The sudden death of Ambrose Omondi at the hands of robbers has plunged his homestead in Nakuru town into deep mourning. On Sunday morning, Omondi left his home as he normally did, heading to work. Just a few steps from his gate, he was ambushed by knife-wielding robbers and fatally stabbed.
Nikauliza certain lady hapo, nini inaendelea? Nani ameuawa? Msichana hakunificha, aliniambia tu vizuri ni Baba Stoni. I was shocked. Kufika nilipata mzee madamu kila mahali. Alikuwa amedungwa ya hapa kwa shingo na hapa kwa kifua.
Tunaomba kama familia justice for Omondi ipatikane. Manake alikuwa ametoka hapa anaenda kazi. Na ni mtu amejilea.
A few kilometers from Omondi's home in Kenlands, 2 suspected criminals were lynched by an angry mob on Saturday night after allegedly being caught attempting to commit a crime.
We want fresh blood because those ule OCS alikuwepo kitambo walikuwa na patrol units. They used to patrol the place. Sasa hivi ukiangalia maskari patrol hakuna, apart from yesterday ndio wamevaa uniform kwa sababu wameona haraka haraka hapa vitu zimeanza kuenda 1 2 3.
2 days ago we lost a gentleman within Barnabas area, that's within Mwariki. It was unfortunate, and we are following a very critical information that there was someone who was involved, and the investigation is on a higher level.
Amid rising insecurity, a police operation targeting criminal networks on Monday recovered 123 mobile phones from various business premises. Authorities say many of the devices were stolen from unsuspecting residents. Of the recovered phones, 50 were found in Kaptembwa, while 73 were seized within Nakuru town.
Kaji wakaamua kujichungia area, wakaweka vigilante. So walikuwa wanasimamisha kila bodaboda. Wanaangalia kama unafanya kazi ya boda ama ni mkora. So wao vijana walipotokea wakasimamishwa, wakakataa kusimama. Sasa si wale ile walikuwa wameweka vigilante hizi barabara zote. Sasa waliposimamishwa wale wa kwanza pale wakusimama, wenye walikuwa wakapigiwa simu, wasimamisha wakakataa, wakakimbizwa, wakagonga bump, wakaanguka. Kuanguka alipatikana na mavisu na mapanga. Sasa sio wakajulikana hawa tu kazi yao ni gani.
I assure you, situation is under control. Our officer, we have intensified foot patrol and mobile patrol, as well as collection of intelligence. Supervision is on the higher level.
8 suspects linked to the mobile phone theft have been arrested. Nakuru County Police Commander Samuel Boyd has warned that security agencies are closely tracking criminal networks. As the family of Ambrose Omondi mourns and calls for justice, their pain echoes that of many families across Nakuru County who have lost loved ones to violent crime. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Let's talk about politics now. And Azimio Coalition has kicked out Junet Mohammed as minority leader at the National Assembly and replaced him with Suba South MP Karoli Omondi. Azimio la Umoja Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka also expelled senior ODM members who joined cabinet, including CS Ali Hassan Joho and Wycliffe Oparanya. Azimio says that the decision was made after the members either joined the government or associated with the camp opposed to Azimio. Emmanuel To has more.
Mining and Blue Economy Cabinet Secretary Ali Hassan Joho, National Assembly Minority Leader Junet Mohammed, nominated MPs and Abdi Nur Omar Farah were all kicked out from the top decision-making organ, the Coalition Council. Kalonzo also removed Junet Mohammed from the Azimio la Umoja Coalition Executive Council alongside 9 others. They include Cabinet Secretary for Cooperatives Wycliffe Oparanya, Energy CS Opiyo Wandayi, Eldas MP Adan Keinan, Pokot South MP David Kosing, Likoni Legislator Mishi Mboko, Garissa Senator Abdul Haji, Isabella Wangeshi, ESC Principal Secretary Dr. Caroline Karugu, and Solomon Kuria. Kalonzo, who is also Wiper Patriotic Front party leader, also went after Junet in Parliament, announcing his removal as the leader of the Azimio Coalition Parliamentary Group, overally and in the National Assembly, replacing him with Suba South MP Karoli Omondi. Karoli had taken over Junet's position as the Secretary General of Azimio. Following the decision, which was arrived at during an Azimio National Executive Council meeting held Monday, was taken by virtue of the appointment to public office and or having joined competing political coalitions. He also announced plans to fill the positions in due course as he prepares to jumpstart the Azimio caravan ahead of next year's election. The changes come as the ODM party, which is the majority constituent party in Azimio, already declared it was exiting the outfit in a decision which is set to be ratified by the ODM National Delegates Convention on the 27th of March this year. Emmanuel Toll, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Now, all retired judges will now enjoy a comprehensive medical cover and diplomatic privileges following the enactment of the Judges' Retirement Benefits Bill into law. The bill, which seeks to improve the welfare and post-retirement security of members of the judiciary, was assented to by President William Ruto at State House, Nairobi, today. Now, the new law provides enhanced retirement benefits, including comprehensive medical cover, diplomatic privileges, and other support measures aimed at safeguarding the dignity and independence of the judges after leaving. Stephen Leto has more.
Flanked by the leadership of the National Assembly and Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi, President William Ruto inked his signature to the historic Judges' Retirement Benefits Bill, formally making it law. The signing ceremony marked a major step in reforming the welfare service security of members of the judiciary. Under the new Judges' Retirement Benefits Fund, judges appointed after the commencement of the Act will contribute 7.5% of the basic salary, while the government will contribute 15% of the judge's basic salary into the fund. The fund will be administered by a board of trustees and provide retirement benefits through a structured contributory scheme designed to ensure long-term physical sustainability. Judges who are in office before the commencement of the Act will remain under the existing defined benefits pension regime administered under the Pension Act. Retired judges will enjoy a range of non-pension benefits aimed at preserving their dignity after retirement. These include comprehensive medical cover, diplomatic passports, and access to all government airport lounges. The non-pension benefits also extend to judges who retired after the promulgation of the Constitution, but before the commencement of the Act. Retired Supreme Court judges are entitled to additional enhanced benefits that reflect the responsibilities and administrative roles they carried out at the Apex Court and within the judiciary. Stephen Leto, Citizen TV.
The Green Movement presidential hopeful David Maraga says strict adherence to the law and a corruption-free administration is the silver bullet that will assure Kenyans of proper service delivery by the government. Maraga, who spoke in Nyeri as he took the parties in Kieni, that's Mkurueni, Nyeri town, and Mathira, it out at the National Treasury, saying that it has decided over the mismanagement of the next years.
What we are talking about is routing through the treasury. We will stop that on the spot, so Kenyans can enjoy their fruits. The moment we do that, we will have money to have in our stores. We will have money to go to schools, and then the other things will fall into place. I am just coming to give the Kenyan back their country, which has been stolen, and you can rest assured, I am not the one person who can be threatened. I only fear one person, God in heaven.
All right, on that note, let's take another quick break here in the Monday Report. We're back with much more in just a short while, so don't go too far. We want our own. Africa countries push for new methodology to determine their sovereign credit ratings.
Citizen Duka inawatakia Ramadhan Mubarak. Tumia muda mchache sokoni na muda mwingi kwa mambo yenye umuhimu zaidi. Bidhaa muhimu na halisi tena za kuaminika kwa bei nafuu zikiletwa